And good morning to all. Today we shall be learning about water resources. In the previous classes, we have learned about land resources and forest resources. So, under water resources, we shall be learning about the use and over exploitation of surface and groundwater, right? What are its consequences? The consequences of floods, droughts, conflicts over water, both interstate and international. I hope you have gone all through all these slides and you have understood all these concepts. The pictorial representation is quite helpful for the students, so you must relate the write-ups along with the pictures for better understanding. So yeah, so water resources, use and overexploitation of surface and groundwater, floods, droughts, conflicts over water, interstate and international. Let's begin. So what are water resources? Basically, these are natural resources of water that are potentially useful, isn't it? Water itself is a resource. With the help of water, we can produce electricity, right? With water, it is used for several purposes such as drinking, cooking, etc. Isn't it? So, but we should know, and I think we all might know this, okay, that even though our earth is covered with water, right, isn't it? 97% of the water on the earth is salt water, right? And only 3% is fresh water, okay? Slightly over two-thirds of this is frozen in the glacier and polar ice caps. The remaining unfrozen water is found mainly at groundwater, with only a small fraction present above ground or air. That means we get only a minimal percentage of water for consuming purposes, isn't it? Rest of the waters, majority of the water is salty, okay, and few are fresh water. And among the fresh water, we can obtain only a few percentage of water for consumption purposes. Now, natural sources of fresh water includes surface water, under river flow, groundwater, and frozen water. Now, what do you mean by surface water? Such as the rivers, streams, lakes, etc. Okay. So here you can see the percentage of water available on Earth. See, the green portion, okay, is the percentage of water in the oceans, okay, followed by the fresh water at the top. And if you expand the fresh water, then you will find that they are mostly restricted to the glaciers and ice caps and underground waters. Okay, only a minimal percent of it is available as a surface water or other fresh water. Then you can see here the earth is covered with a huge percentage of water, isn't it? It is covered with water to all the sides. But since the waters are salty in higher concentration, in a major portion of the water are salty in nature, that's why it is unfit for drinking purposes, right? So we need to process most of the waters, okay, in the desert countries or in the coastal countries. What do? They used to process this water so that they can convert it into a potable or drinkable ones. So what are the uses of water? Broadly, the water is used in three major categories, okay, or classes, such as domestic, for domestic purposes, cleaning, washing, cooking, drinking, etc. So next is your agricultural purposes, that is for irrigation purpose, right, mainly. And then the industrial purpose, that is for processing various raw materials. They do need water, isn't it? So the uses of water may be confined to three broad categories, such as domestic, agricultural, and industrial, okay. And the water resources are under threat from water scarcity, water pollution, water conflict, and climate change. Obviously, the water resources are in a huge threat, right? First and foremost, due to unperiodic rainfall, right, or weather conditions. Then, due to water pollutions, most of the factories or industries, they release harmful chemicals in the water, directly into the water, which leads to this water pollution, right? Then water conflicts, many type of conflicts are occurring, as well as have been occurred in the past, okay, which drastically affected the water resources, and obviously the climate change. Now, fresh water is a renewable resources. No doubt, it's a renewable resources. Yet, the world supply of groundwater is steadily decreasing due to various natural and human-induced factors, such as surface runoff, scarcity of rainfall, deforestation, and overuse. No doubt, fresh water is a renewable resources, but if uh, if suppose there is a tank in your house, okay, and if the water is not coming from the PHE, the supply is not coming as per your demand, then what will happen? You will find it difficult, right, to maintain the use of the water, isn't it? So you need to go for a sustainable approaches. Okay. Now, what are the reasons that leads to this sort of imbalance, right? The first and foremost is your surface runoff. Surface runoff means when it rains, then the water flows down. Okay. Then if the rate of flow is not average or normal, then the seepage of the water will not take place in the ground, so hence the water table will be low. Okay. Then scarcity of rainfall, yeah, definitely. If there is no supply of resource, then obviously it will be a problematic one, because if there is no rainfall, then there is no water at all. We can assume the underground water, the groundwater table will not be increasing. The level of the groundwater table will not be rising, and the wells will be drying up. Okay, in this way, the water scarcity can be there. Deforestation, obviously, like I told, that the plants are very much important in maintaining the hydrological cycle, and if the plants are being cut down, then obviously it will affect the hydrological cycle, isn't it? Then overuse of water. Okay, no doubt. Let me give you a very simple example. In your house, there is a bucket of water. Okay, and everybody has been asked to just take a mug of water and wash their face off. But what happens? A particular person, maybe two, three members of your family, instead of using one mug of water, they are using 3-4 mugs of water. Then obviously they are overusing it. Thereby, further the other fellow members won't get it, right? So here comes the sustainable term. If you what is the meaning of sustainable resources? Sustainable resources means using of resource in such a way that it doesn't affect the future generation. Okay, everybody has been asked to use only one mug of water, so each and everybody should use one mug of water, so that every members of the family gets the opportunity to wash their face. Okay, this is just a simple example to relate with. Surface and groundwater. What do you mean by surface and groundwater? Surface water means all the water available in the natural depressions of the earth, okay, or the natural groups of the earth, such as river, lake, or freshwater wetland. Now, surface water is naturally replenished by precipitation, that is through rainfall, through discharge to the oceans, evaporation, and is naturally lost through discharge to the oceans, evaporation, transpiration, and groundwater recharge. Okay, so this surface water, that is the water present in the surface, is usually lost. Okay, it is first and foremost, it is replenished by the precipitation, right, that is by the rainfall. Okay, and secondly, it is lost due to discharge to the oceans, right, and evaporation, like we all know that the rivers, okay, ultimately they meet into the sea. Then evaporation is a factor which leads to the drying up of the lakes, or you can see the rivers, okay, etc. Not rivers, actually the lakes mainly. Now transpiration and groundwater recharge. Okay, now next is your groundwater. Groundwater is a fresh water which is located in the sub-pore surface of the solid and rocks. Simply, in simple terms, the groundwater is the water which is found beneath the soil or beneath the earth. Okay, so it is that water which flows through the aquifers. Okay, water aquifers, these are the rocks in which the water is stored, the groundwater is stored. Okay, and typically they are made up of gravel, sand, or limestone. So here you can see a hydrological cycle in which the evaporation from the ocean leads to the development of clouds, okay, which ultimately precipitates and fall down into various depressions or groups of present in the land, right, such as reservoir, etc., and then followed by the seepage, okay, of the water. Some amount of water it goes down into the ground, under the ground, and the rest of it flows back to the ocean, right? This is the hydrological cycle which we have seen in our school days. So here is the difference between groundwater and surface water. So groundwater is the water that occurs below the surface of the earth, isn't it? And surface water is the water that is above the surface of the earth. Beneath the surface of the earth is present the groundwater, and on the surface of the earth is present the surface water. Now, the groundwater is less prone to pollution, such as the air pollution, water pollution, or you can say being contaminated, such as affecting with the microbes, right? But the surface water, as it is exposed completely to the environment, right, so it is very much prone to pollution. Now, the groundwater are found at groundwater table, aquifers, soil pore spaces, and rock fracture points. Whereas the surface water are found in various sources like the lakes, reservoirs, rivers, etc. Okay. So this is a more naturalistic representation of the water cycle. Okay. If you wish, you can go. You can pause it and you can go through this slide. Okay. Next is over exploitation of water. So what do you mean by over exploitation? That means over utilization or over uses of water. Okay. So what happens when you overutilize the water, right? Overutilize the water resources, then the ground table declines. Obviously the groundwater table, it declines. Okay. The level of the water table goes down. Subsidence, that means you can see there is a picture below the subsidence in which the land, okay, has dropped down. Okay. So that means a form of depression has formed. Okay. So this occurs when there is water flowing below the land. Okay. And upon drying of the water, right, of the area beneath the land, the depression, due to the force from the above, the land gets, okay, depressed down. So third is your attenuation and drying of springs. Obviously due to the over exploitation of water, the springs, they gets attenuated and they gets dried further. Now decrease of river flow. Obviously the river flow is dependent upon the quantity of water, okay, present in the volume of the water. If the volume of water is decreasing, then the flow of the river will also decrease. Now increased pollution vulnerability. Obviously due to the decrease in water, many sort of plants and animal species gets affected. They die on and they just get diseased, and that thereby it leads to the various type of pollutions. Okay. Now, overutilization of surface water. Now if you overutilize this surface water, what will happen? Like I said, there will be flow in the water river, right? Decrease in the flow of water river. Then drying of ponds and lakes, especially during the summer. Reduction in the wetlands and vegetations, obviously as the vegetations are dependent on the plant water. Okay, that is the surface water, they too gets affected. Okay. Then migration of public due to scarcity of water. Obviously if we need water for sustenance, isn't it? So if we don't find water in a particular area, we won't be risking our life by simply staying in that area for long. Okay, we shall be migrating to further states or further area, so for getting so that we can sustain our life. Okay. Next is your overutilization of groundwater. Obviously excessive pumping of groundwater causes porous formation, isn't it? Porous means hole like formation, gadha like formation. Okay. And then what happens, it tends the area from which the excessive pumping is taking place, the land becomes very much weak and it is very much prone to collapse. Okay. Then heavy pumping can lower water table. Obviously the water table level may get lower if heavy pumping of water is taking place. Overuse of freshwater reservoirs along the coastline allows salt water to move in it. Okay, along the coastline the salt water tends to move. Okay, and ultimately making the water unfit, okay, for any agricultural or domestical activities. Floods are temporary overflow of water, okay, that submerges the land, which is usually dry in normal days. Okay, like you can say, you have seen the flood conditions in our area. Okay, what happens, the usually the for land or area which is usually dry gets submerged. Okay, and that is also for temporary timing. Okay, and this particular condition is termed as water floods. Now it may be due to natural factor such as heavy rain, tsunamis, etc., or by human activities such as construction of dams. Okay, release of greenhouse gases is a very major factor, because the greenhouse gas leads to global warming, which ultimately leads to the rise in the polar ice caps. Okay, the melting of the polar ice caps and the rise in the water level. Okay, thereby affecting the coastal areas. Now and you can see the industrial areas or the urban areas, if they usually they have to have this good drainage system. Okay, if they don't have this drainage system, then obviously the water clogging will happen, and thereby it will affect the area. Now what are the principal types of floods? There are these are aerial floods. Okay, aerial floods means the submergence of any flat or low lying areas. Okay, due to overflow of water, collapse of dam, heavy rainfall or snow melt. The impact of which is more rapid as the water inflows from the surrounding higher regions and it can either infiltrate or run off. The excess accumulates in place is sometimes to hazardous depths. Okay, so aerial type of flood is simply the submergence of the flat or low-lying areas. Okay, next is your riverine. Okay, this type of flooding refers to the floods occurring in all types of river and stream channels. Okay, if suppose the river water level has increased drastically, okay, or the stream channels, the river flowing in the stream channels has increased in its volume, right, then what will happen? Overflow of water will take place and thereby submergence of the nearby land. Okay, the rise of the water level is mainly due to heavy rainfall over a prolonged period of time. Conditions where overland flow occurs in tilted fields, it can result in muddy floods where sediments are picked up by runoff and carried as suspended matter or bed load. Okay, next is your estuarine and coastal. Okay, that is nearby sea areas. Okay, here the flooding takes place due to excessive rise in the sea level and excessive winds. Okay, thereby leading to huge rise of huge amount of sea tides. Okay, and coastal areas may be flooded by storms events at sea, resulting in waves overtopping defenses or in severe cases by tsunamis or tropical cyclones. Next is urban flooding. Urban flooding refers to the inundation of land or property in a built environment. Okay, that is in a townly environment. If flooding occurs, then it is called as urban flooding. And this is that the major factor responsible for urban flooding is improper drainage. Okay. Number 5th is your catastrophic. Catastrophic means disastrous. Okay, catastrophic flooding is related to the flooding condition which arises due to landslides, earthquake, volcanic eruption, major infrastructure construction defects such as collapse of dam, etc. Okay, that is the disaster in a major sense. Okay, in a largest extent is called as catastrophe. Okay, so this sort of flooding occurs mainly due to collapse of dam, melting of glaciers of the ice. Okay, volcanic eruption, earthquake, etc. Okay, here in these pictures you can see the hurricanes, tsunamis, breaking of dam, okay, and cyclone. Now, what are the causes of floods? Okay, mainly it may be due to heavy rainfall or sudden release of water from dams. Okay, which submerges the the low-lying areas, or it may be due to prolonged heavy rainfall which results into the overflowing of lakes and rivers. Okay, or you can say the reduction in the carrying capacity of river. Now, what do you mean by carrying capacity? This means, suppose there is a bucket of 5 liter. Okay, that means what? The bucket can hold a water of 5 liter volume only. So that is the bucket's carrying capacity. Okay, that 5 liter is the bucket's carrying capacity. Now, similarly, each and every river, okay, they do have their own carrying capacity. Okay, and if it exceeds, obviously there will be overflow of water and flooding will take place. Then it's your deforestation, overgrazing and mining. Like I said, deforestation is related to the amount of rainfall. Okay, and suppose there are trees in a particular area, they used to anchor the soil, right, and when rainwater flows through them, right, they absorb a major amount of water, or thereby they reduce the impact of this flat. Okay, but if you cut down the trees, the ill effects will happen, the opposite happens. Overgrazing, obviously, it is related to some sort of deforestation itself, right? Overgrazing means the excessive eating of the grasses by the cattle. Okay, so if we know that the grass roots hold the soil, okay, and the roots are responsible for absorbance of water as well, right? If there are no roots, no plants, then absorbance of water will not take place, thereby the flood level will increase. Mining activities. So mining also is related to your flood. Okay, because for mining we need to cut down the trees. Okay, you can relate it with the deforestation. Next is your catastrophes, like we have seen in the previous slides. It may be both natural as well as man-made. Okay, now what are the effects of floods? First and foremost, it is submergence of low-lying areas, loss of vegetation, land degradation, soil erosion, disease outbreaks, contamination of water, destruction of society, damage to life and property. Okay, Now, what are the control measures? First and foremost, floods can be controlled by constructing dams of reservoirs. Okay, but we should keep in mind that the construction doesn't affects the life of the living or the life of the organisms living around the area. Okay, channel management and embankments. Okay, channel means it is just like a drain type, a large drain type connecting two large bodies. Okay, passing through the land. Encroachment of floodways should be banned. Okay, obviously encroachment of the floodways, that means the path through which the water flows should not be obstructed. Flood hazard may reduce by forecasting and flood warning. Obviously, a prior alertation is very much important to save lives, isn't it? So, such as this forecasting, flood forecasting, and flood warning will be a very much helpful for the people to prepare them in advance. Now, reduction of runoff through afforestation in the catchment area. Okay, so regarding this one, the afforestation will be a boon if we can plant it in a particular area. Okay, so because you see in the picture on the lower left, okay, you can see there are lots of trees in a particular, in the first picture the trees are helping in maintaining the water level. Okay, but in the subsequent picture you see just close to it the trees are cut down, and thereby you see the water level has also increased, isn't it? So same effect occurs in the environment as well. Okay, so plantation of trees is a boon, I can say. Okay, so these are various processes or techniques with which we can control the effects of flood. Okay, first is your weather forecasting or flood forecasting, like I said. Okay, and second is your weather instrument. Okay, through various weather instruments we can measure the amount of the parameters. Okay, and then you see this is a particular coastal area in which in the above picture you can see there are trees grown, and the trees are helping the settlements just behind it. Okay, then you see in the picture below the trees are being cut, and then the flooding takes place in the catchment area or the settled area. Okay, so with these pictures we can understand that prior information or prevention is better than cure or something. We can relate to it, right? So prior information will lead to alertness. Okay, and we can prepare ourselves. Then in the picture below on the right you can see the importance of trees or plants. Okay, next is your droughts. Droughts is a period of time when an area or region experiences below normal precipitation. Okay, so this is a condition in which a particular area experiences below normal precipitation. Okay, the lack of adequate precipitation, either rain or snow, can cause reduced soil moisture on the ground, diminished stream flow, crop damage, and general water shortage. The important types of droughts are meteorological droughts. Okay, this is due to the uneven rainfall or unperiodic rainfall. Okay, and it is usually defined on the basis of degree of dryness and duration of the dry period. Now, meteorological drought happens when dry weather patterns dominate an area. Okay, that means there have not been rainfall for a long period of time in that area. It leads to a meteorological drought. Okay, the Indian Meteorological Department has defined drought as a situation occurring in any area where the mean annual rainfall is less than 75% of the normal rainfall. Okay, so on an average, India receives 118 centimeter annual rainfall. The effectiveness of rainfall is more important than the amount of rainfall. Okay, but the uncertain, unreliable, and erratic nature of rainfall by southwest monsoon creates drought condition in different parts of the country. So here you might have seen that the unit of rainfall, the amount of rainfall is written in centimeters. So how do they measure the amount of rainfall? So there in the first picture you can see this is a rainfall measuring instrument. Okay, that is called as rain gauge. Okay, under this cylindrical instrument you will find a conical flask type. You can see a cylinder. Okay, then when it rains, the rain is focused through this cone like struck apparatus. okay, and the rainwater, it flows into the cylindrical tube which is graduated, that means which is marked with numberings, and after a rainfall the reading is being recorded. Okay, in this regard they used to say, they used to assume or predict the amount of rainfall. Okay, now on the third point you can see the effectiveness of rainfall is more important than the amount of rainfall. Obviously, uh, it means no matter if it rains heavily throughout the day, but if the plants cannot utilize a single drop of rain, okay, of a single drop of rainwater, that means we can say it was ineffective. Okay, it was ineffective, uh, okay, for the plants. Okay, so in that regard, no, a drought may happen in an area where there is good amount of rainfall, but the land is not able to hold the water. Okay, second is your agricultural droughts. This refers to the condition in which the crops cannot grow well, or the crops do not get enough moisture. Okay, when soil moisture and rainfall conditions are not adequate enough to support a healthy crop, okay, that means they are facing a extreme moisture stress in that area. Okay, so this in turn affects the crop production of an area, and we call it as a agricultural drought. Okay, next is your hydrological drought. Now, this type of drought refers to the persistent low water volumes in streams, rivers, and reservoirs. Mostly, it is related to the stream, lakes, reservoirs, etc. Okay, if the level of the water is very much low, then we call it as a hydrological drought. Now, hydrological drought occurs when low water supply becomes evident, right? Especially in the streams, rivers, reservoirs, etc. After many months of meteorological drought. Okay, this hydrological drought, okay, comes after the meteorological drought. Okay, a meteorological drought often leads to hydrological drought. The hydrological drought takes much longer to develop and then to recover. Okay, it takes much longer time to develop and then to recover. There are two types of hydrological drought. Surface water drought, it is concerned with the drying up of the surface waters. Okay, as you know, what are the surface waters? There are many processes beside meteorological droughts which lead to the surface water drought. Okay, such as large scale deforestation is a major concern. Groundwater drought, this is related to the fall in the groundwater table. Okay, this happens due to excessive pumping of water. Okay, and this groundwater is also dependent upon the availability of surface water and surface runoff. Okay, the northern plain of India has soft and porous alluvial soil. This soil permits percolation of water and helps in groundwater replacement. But in contrast to that, the peninsular plateau area is made up of hard and impervious rocks, which hinders the process of groundwater replenishment. Okay, that means the geography also matters. Okay, so for the replenishment of the groundwater. Fourth is your socio-economic drought. So socio-economic drought relates to the supply and demand of various commodities of drought. Okay, so this particularly if the demand is very much more higher than the supply, this sort of drought condition takes place. Okay, the supply of many economic goods such as fruits, water, food grains, fishes, and hydroelectric power depend on weather, isn't it? Because of the natural variability of the climate, water supply is ample in some years but unable to meet human and environmental needs in our years. It occurs when the demand for an economic good exceeds supply as a result of weather-related shortfall in water supply. Okay, so socio-economic drought, that means if the demand increases than the supply. Okay, as for example of various economic products. Okay, and the economic products could not be grown or because of the weather conditions. Okay, then we can say in this scenario the socio-economic drought has occurred. And one more thing, socio-economic drought is dependent upon meteorological drought, hydrological drought, and agricultural drought. Okay, it's a combination of all these three consequences. Now, ecological drought refers to the deficit in naturally available water supplies. Okay, is defined as the prolonged and widespread deficit in the natural availability of water supplies. Okay, including changes in the nature and managed hydrology that create multiple stress across ecosystem. Okay, so ecological droughts is related to the degradation in the water supplies, the inability of the water supplies in a particular ecosystem. Okay, thereby hampering the productivity of the ecosystem. Ecological drought takes place when the productivity of a natural system fails significantly as a consequence of distress induced by environmental damage. Now, what are the causes of droughts? When annual rainfall is below normal and less than evaporation, then drought occurs. Okay, population growth leading to poor land use, intensive agriculture and overexploitation of water resources, deforestation, land degradation, soil erosion, late onset or early withdrawal of monsoon overgrazing, and prolonged break in monsoon. Okay, so if there is low annual rainfall, okay, then drought may occur. And if there is rainfall but the evaporation is the rate of evaporation the rate of rainfall is less than the rate of the evaporation, then also drought occurs. Now, population growth, obviously population growth will lead to your land use, isn't it? So if the land then the clearing of the land, deforestation of the land will take place, thereby hampering the water hydrological cycle, and in turn it may cause drought. Intensive agriculture and overexploitation, obviously if you want to cultivate a particular crop in your land, first you need to clear the land, you need to till the soil, isn't it? And for that, and then you need to irrigate the land, isn't it, the crops actually. So if you do intensively, okay, then the drought may take place. Now, drought may occur. Now, deforestation, land degradation and soil erosion is all related to the hydrological cycles and the soil degradation of the quality of the soil. Now, late onset and early withdrawal of moisture, overgrazing and prolonged breaks in the monsoons. Okay, so let us move to the next slide. Some of the effects of droughts on environment are: the land in which the plant life is growing may be badly damaged due to drought condition, isn't it? If the plants don't find water, sufficient amount of water, they won't be growing in that particular area, right? A cultivable land transforms into an uncultivable land. Okay, obviously, okay, as a result of the drought condition, a fully cultivated land may be transformed into a fully barren land. Okay, now it affects the life of living organisms. Obviously, the living organisms, they require water, okay, and vegetations for their sustenance of life, isn't it? If they don't find these two things, obviously it is going to hamper their life. In adverse condition, droughts may lead to desertification. Now, what do you mean by desertification? Desertification means the complete drying of the area. Okay, complete drying of the area, having no vegetation at all or minimal amount of some adapted, good quality adapted vegetations. Okay, having very much reduced water conditions in that area. Okay, the diversity of life forms is affected. Obviously, the diversity, that is the variety of life forms, is affected due to prolonged drought conditions, because most of the dependent living organisms might not sustain, right, in that type of conditions. The inhabitants who are solely dependent upon the drought affected land tend to suffer the most and the worst. Okay, isn't it? So those people who are solely dependent on these drought affected lands, okay, it will be a very much pathetic situation for those peoples. Okay, and most of the times they have to migrate. Now, what are the environmental impacts of droughts? Like we have read: drying out of water bodies, reduction in the soil quality, unsuitable condition for plant and vegetation survival, migration, and even that of animals and wildlife. Economic impacts of droughts: increased budgetary spending by farmers, isn't it? They need to increase the budget, okay, and reduce crop yields. Obviously, the crops will not be growing fully. Industrial and government loss: obviously, the governments and industries which are dealing with these cash crops, etc., they will be failing. They will be facing this one, economic losses. Higher energy cost for economic dependent on hydropower, obviously, and the demand will be greater than the supply, like I said. Now, what are the social impacts on droughts? Outbreak of diseases, obviously, conflicts, okay, conflicts leading rise to various sorts of tensions between two areas, two groups, two communities, or two countries. Okay, hunger, malnutrition, that's anxiety, and migration of people. What are the control measures? First and foremost, the indigenous knowledge is very much important, okay, because a person living in a particular area will have a good understanding of that particular area, isn't it? So that means what is the particular time of rainfall, okay, and in which season which crops can be grown or cultivated, etc. These are called as indigenous knowledge. Okay, rainwater harvesting, this is a very good and important technique, okay, mostly followed in the hilly areas of India, as well as I hope in the other parts as well. Okay, so This rainwater harvesting simply means the collection of the rainwater. Okay, so this is a very good technique for so that we are not fully so that we can minimize ourselves from utilizing the groundwater or surface water resources. Okay, every time. Then construction of large capacity reservoirs of obviously this is very much essential in drought prone areas in which the average rainfall is very much low, isn't it? So in that area the a large type of reservoirs, that is a large collection tank, okay, it is called as large collection tank, may be built, okay, and the water might be stored in it so that the purpose of water consumption is or for irrigation purposes or water consumption purposes, okay, may be solved. Modern irrigation techniques such as drip irrigation. So what do you mean by drip irrigation? Here you can see in earlier times what we used to do, we used to just sprinkle the water everywhere in the field, isn't it, for irrigating our crops or plants. But modern day technique is very much reliable as it allows the water to fall only in particular region or where it is demanded, okay, so that is the roots of the plant. So here you can see in the picture there are the crops are grown, okay, and in between the crops the a pipeline is placed along the line of the crops, okay, and if you see clearly you can see that the holes are punctured in that particular area region only which is closer to the roots, okay. In this way when you go for watering it, the water drops will come out from these pores, okay, and it will fall directly onto the roots, thereby focusing it to the exact area where the water needs to be used, okay. So this reduces the extra wastage of the water. Next is your afforestation activities. Like I said, afforestation is a boon, plantation is a boon, okay. So if you plant trees, a number of environmental issues are resolved, okay. Mixed cropping means you can grow different type of crops in a particular area, or you can grow crops along with some trees, okay. This type of cultivation not only restores the drought condition but also it provides an ecological balance. Now conflicts over water, both interstate and international, okay. So water conflicts is a term describing a conflict between countries, states or groups over the rights to access water, okay. The United Nations recognize the water dispute resulting from opposing interest of water users, public or private, okay. Most of the time the conflicts this rises due to opposing interest, okay. Now, however, water conflicts arises for several other reasons, including territorial disputes like India and China. Recently, we have heard in the news, right? A fight for resources and strategic advantage. The best example is India and China, Galwan Valley. Okay, because we can see this most of the reasons related to that of the fights which occurred in that valley. So, water conflicts majorly arises due to opposing interest or for any strategic advantage or territorial disputes, etc. Okay, between two persons, it may be between two persons, between two families, it may be from a micro level to a macro level, okay, involving countries. Now conflicts over water, interstate. So the Interstate River Water Dispute Act 1956 is an act of the Indian Parliament of India enacted under Article 262 of Constitution of India on the eve of reorganization of the states on linguistic basis to resolve the water disputes that would arise in the use, control and distribution of an interstate river or river valley. So if we are speaking about the conflicts, definitely we need to speak about the law or the acts, articles, right? So here we can say there's an Article 262 of the Constitution of India under the Interstate River Water Dispute Act which resolves the water disputes, okay, arising in a particular area or the river valley, okay. So this Article 262 of the Indian Constitution provides a role to the central government, okay, in adjudicating the conflicts surrounding interstate rivers and that arises among the state or regional governments. This act further has undergone many amendments. The most recent one is that of the 2002, okay. So here from this slide you should note this point that the Interstate River Water Dispute Acts, under this act there is an Article 262 which tries to resolve, okay, tries to resolve the water disputes, okay, occurring in a river valley, okay, and it gives the central government full power to solve the issues. Next is your conflicts about water international, and in the international level it's the article 253, okay, which states that the parliament has to ratify, okay, any river water sharing treaty, okay, as per article 263, as per article 262, to make the treaty constitutionally valid. But there is exception under article 252, the Indus water treaty, okay, with Pakistan, and the Ganga water sharing treaty with Bangladesh has been signed without the ratification by the parliament. Now these are list of the some national conflicts over water, okay, you can go through it and there are lots of water conflicts, okay, so I have mentioned few of it, okay. From this you just read further, give it a further reading, okay, and if there is any issue then you may consult me. So these are some of the international conflicts, okay, and the major low-lying underration, okay. So now the major underlying reason for these conflicts are low rainfall, okay, there is inadequate water supply and dependency on one major water source, okay. So if in a village there is one particular well only, okay, and it is situated in the boundary of two villages, okay, so and there is scarcity of rainfall, then obviously the conflicts will arise, okay. High population growth and rapid urbanization, obviously as the population increases the demand for the water increases, okay, and the fighting also takes place. Modernization and industrialization, obviously for modernization and industrialization you need you need this water resources, right. So suppose you are obtaining water from a particular site area, so you won't allow any other individual to come and utilize this water, isn't it? So what will happen, this will lead to conflicts. A history of armed combat and poor relation between countries and among groups within countries, okay. History of armed combat also is a major reason for conflicts. Immediately precipitating causes includes socio-political tensions, okay, that is the current issues which the immediately precipitating causes, that is the current issues, will include the socio-political tensions, okay, then dispute over dams, reservoir and other large-scale projects, disputes concerning environmental and resource issues like the Narmada Bachao Andolan, etc., right. Water scarcity alone, however, is infrequently the cause of armed conflicts over water. Water scarcity alone is never a cause for any conflicts, okay. Now what are the preventive measures? Reducing the use of water, decreasing wasteful uses and increasing efficient uses, okay, that means we are sustainably using the water resources, okay. Reducing industrial pollution, sewage contamination, improving sewage water treatment plants, etc. Establishing of and maintaining the groundwater wells, okay. So these are some of the preventive measures. Designing an implementation method for desalination. Now what do you mean by desalination? We know that the 97% of the earth's water is saline condition, right, full of salt in it. So we can process this salty water into potable or drinkable water, okay. So the method which is used for this is known as desalination, that is removing of the salt particles from the seawater. Expanding use of grey water. Now what do you mean by grey water? Such as the wastewater, which is wastewater from the domestic activities, okay, such as the water with which you have washed your vegetable can be used, can be reused for irrigation, etc. Laws and regulation is very much important to solve these conflicts in issues. Proactive cooperation, that means you should prepare yourself early, okay, prior to any ill effects or any conflicts, okay. In the next topic we shall be discussing about energy resources, and till then just go through these slides, okay. Everything, each and everything is mentioned, and regarding these conflicts you need to study it from the Google or somewhere, find out some good resources, okay, and just know the background of these conflicts, okay, individually, okay. Just go through these slides, and in case you find any difficulties, do let me know, okay. The pictorial representation will indeed help you in understanding the topics, the points related to it, okay. So that's all for today, and thank you very much.